You are being controlled right now, not by force, not by threat, not by anyone who has declared themselves your enemy, by your own need. The need for the relationship to continue, the need for the approval to arrive, the need for the income to stay stable, the need to be seen as reasonable, capable, successful, worthy, the need for the situation to resolve in your favour, the need for the person across from you to think well of you when you leave the room. Every one of those needs is a handle, and someone, not everyone, but someone, has their hand on at least one of them right now. You cannot see it because the hand is light. It does not grip. It does not announce itself. It simply applies the faintest pressure in a specific direction and watches you move. Niccolò Machiavelli spent 14 years inside the most sophisticated power structures in Renaissance Europe. He sat across from popes and princes and military commanders and watched them operate. He was not naive about what he was seeing. He was a trained observer of human motivation, specifically the gap between what people said they wanted and what actually drove their decisions. And what he found, underneath almost every negotiation, every alliance, every moment of apparent strength that concealed real vulnerability, was need. Not weakness in the conventional sense, not stupidity or cowardice or lack of resources. Need. The prince who needed his subjects to love him could be manipulated through their opinion. The general who needed the victory to secure his reputation would take risks that a man with nothing to prove would never take. The ally who needed the relationship to continue would absorb mistreatment rather than walk away from the table. Machiavelli watched all of it. He documented all of it. And he arrived at a conclusion that most people spend their entire lives refusing to examine. The most dangerous person in any room is not the strongest, not the wealthiest, not the most aggressive or the most connected or the most visibly powerful. It is the one who needs nothing from the room, because you cannot threaten what requires nothing from you. You cannot manipulate what has no handles. You cannot control what is genuinely willing to walk away. This video is about how need operates as the primary mechanism of control in every relationship, every negotiation, every power dynamic you have ever been inside, and it is about the specific cost of carrying needs you have never examined. Before we go further, think about the last time you stayed in something longer than you should have. Not because it was working, because leaving felt like losing something you could not afford to lose. That feeling, that specific weight that kept you in place, that is the handle. And we are going to find every version of it in your life before this video ends. Machiavelli understood something that modern psychology would spend centuries trying to articulate. Need does not announce itself as vulnerability. It announces itself as desire, as preference, as reasonable human motivation. You do not experience your need for approval as weakness. You experience it as caring what people think, which feels mature, considered, socially aware. You do not experience your need for the relationship to continue as a handle someone can grab. You experience it as loyalty, commitment, love. You do not experience your need for the outcome to arrive as desperation. You experience it as ambition, drive, the reasonable desire to see your work rewarded. This is what makes need so effective as a control mechanism. It disguises itself as virtue. Machiavelli observed this in the courts of Renaissance Italy with clinical precision. the prince who framed his need for popular approval as concern for his subjects, the commander who framed his need for the decisive victory as commitment to the cause, the diplomat who framed his need for the alliance to hold as loyalty to the relationship. All of them believed their own framing. None of them could see that the framing was the disguise, and the people across from them, the ones who understood what was actually happening, used that disguised need with extraordinary efficiency. They did not need to threaten, they simply needed to imply, to suggest that the approval might be withdrawn, that the relationship might not continue, that the outcome might not arrive, that the opinion in the room might shift. The implied threat against the need produces the same result as a direct threat against safety. The person moves, not because they were forced, because something they could not afford to lose felt suddenly at risk. Machiavelli called this the vulnerability of fortune. The person who has built their position on things that can be taken, approval, relationships, outcomes, reputation, is always one withdrawal away from collapse. The person who has built their position on nothing that can be taken is structurally different, not invulnerable, not immune to loss, simply not controllable through the standard mechanisms. Think about the people in your life who are genuinely difficult to move. Not difficult in the aggressive sense, difficult in the specific sense of you cannot apply the usual pressure and expect the usual result. You cannot threaten them with your disapproval because they do not need your approval. You cannot threaten them with withdrawal because they have already made peace with your absence. You cannot threaten them with the loss of the outcome because they have genuinely detached from the outcome. They are not cold, they are not indifferent, they simply do not have the handles you are reaching for, and in their presence you feel something specific, not hostility, not intimidation, the specific discomfort of someone who cannot find the lever. That discomfort is Machiavelli's observation made physical. Here is the question most people will not answer honestly. What is the one thing in your life right now that someone could threaten? Not with violence, not with direct confrontation, just with the possibility of withdrawal. And you would move to protect it, not what you would admit to needing, what you would actually move for, that thing, whatever just surfaced. That is the most important piece of information in this video for you personally. In 1502, Machiavelli was sent by the Florentine Republic to meet Cesare Borgia. Borgia was at the height of his power, son of Pope Alexander VI, military commander of extraordinary efficiency, a man who had consolidated more territory in central Italy in 2 years than most princes managed in a lifetime, and Machiavelli watched him operate with the specific attention of someone who understood that what he was seeing was not just military or political competence. It was the operation of a man who had reduced his visible needs to almost nothing. Borgia did not need his allies to like him. He needed them to be useful. When they stopped being useful, he removed them, without anger, without drama, without the hesitation of someone who required the relationship to continue. He did not need his enemies to fear him in the conventional sense. He needed them to be uncertain about what he would do next. Uncertainty in an opponent who needs predictability to plan. That is a specific kind of leverage. He did not need the approval of the church, despite his father's position within it. He operated with a clarity about what the church could and could not actually do to him. that most men in his position could not access because their need for religious legitimacy made them vulnerable to religious pressure. Machiavelli watched all of this and wrote dispatches home to Florence with the specific tone of someone who had encountered something they could not fully explain through the frameworks they arrived with. He was not endorsing Borgia. He was documenting something real. A man whose reduced needs produced a quality of power that conventional resources, money, alliances, military strength could not fully account for. Because the conventional resources could be countered, the needlessness could not. You cannot counter what requires nothing from you. You cannot negotiate with someone who has already decided they can afford to walk away. You cannot apply pressure to someone who has already absorbed the worst version of what you could do and found it survivable. Borgia fell eventually, not because his needlessness failed him, because the one need he could not eliminate, the need for his father's continued influence and protection, was removed when Alexander VI died unexpectedly in 1503. The single handle. And it was enough. Machiavelli noted this with the precision of someone filing away a lesson that would take years to fully articulate. Even one need is enough. Even one handle is sufficient for the right person to find. You are probably thinking, I cannot eliminate all my needs. I am human. I need things. You are right. But Machiavelli is not asking you to become inhuman. He is asking you to know which of your needs are handles, because the need you have examined is a preference. The need you have not examined is a weapon someone else is holding. The difference between those two things is the entire argument. Let us be precise about which needs function as handles in practice, because not all needs operate the same way. The need for physical safety is a need, but it is not typically the handle used in the power dynamics of ordinary life. Most people are not being threatened with violence, they are being threatened with something quieter and more pervasive. The first handle is the need for approval. This one is so deeply embedded that most people cannot see it operating. It began in childhood, the discovery that certain behaviours produced warmth and certain behaviours produced withdrawal. The approval need was not chosen. It was installed before you had the language to examine it. In adulthood, it manifests as the slight adjustment you make before speaking in certain rooms. The version of your opinion you present when you sense the room wants something slightly different from what you actually think. The decision you make that is technically yours, but has been quietly shaped by the awareness of how it will be received. Nobody threatened you. Nobody grabbed the handle explicitly. They simply created a context where the handle pulled itself. The second handle is the need for the relationship to continue. Machiavelli observed that the most controllable person in any alliance was the one who needed the alliance more. Not because the other party was cruel, because the asymmetry of need produces an asymmetry of power that operates automatically. When you need the relationship more than the other person does, you will absorb things that a person with equal or less investment would not absorb. You will interpret ambiguous signals charitably because the alternative, that the relationship is in jeopardy, is something you cannot afford to sit with. You will apologize first, concede first, adjust first, not because you are weak, because the need is running the calculation before your conscious mind gets to vote. The third handle is the need for external validation of your own judgment. This is the subtlest one, and in many ways the most expensive, it manifests as the inability to fully trust a decision until someone whose opinion you respect has confirmed it, as the specific anxiety of having made a choice that nobody around you has endorsed, as the way a single person's doubt about your direction can introduce a crack in your certainty that your own conviction could not produce. You are not asking for permission consciously, but some part of you is waiting for the confirmation before you give the decision your full weight, and the person who understands that about you can delay that confirmation indefinitely, can introduce doubt without stating it explicitly, can make you work harder, concede more, adjust your position, simply by withholding the signal you did not know you were waiting for. Machiavelli wrote that men deceive themselves about their own freedom. They believe they are choosing when they are responding. They believe they are deciding when they are reacting. They believe they are operating from strength when they are operating from the specific anxiety of a need that has not been met. The prince who has examined his needs knows which of his movements are chosen and which are pulled. Most people never make that examination. Here is what changes when you actually examine the need, rather than just acknowledging it exists. It loses some of its automatic power. Not all of it. The need does not disappear because you have seen it. But the examined need requires conscious activation. The unexamined need runs on its own. And that difference between a need that requires you to consciously choose to act on it and a need that moves you before you have finished thinking is the difference between having a handle and being one. This is the section that gets misread. Because when most people hear Machiavelli's argument about needlessness, they construct a specific image. The cold person, the detached person, the one who has closed off genuine connection in order to avoid vulnerability. The person who performs not caring as a power strategy. That is not what Machiavelli observed. What he observed was something structurally different. The person who has done the work of examining their needs, who knows which of their desires are preferences and which are handles, does not become cold. They become precise. They can choose to be warm because the warmth is a choice rather than a compulsion. They can choose to invest in a relationship because they have assessed it as worth investing in, rather than because the need for the relationship is running the decision. They can choose to seek approval in contexts where approval is strategically useful, rather than seeking it reflexively in every context, regardless of its value. The difference is not emotional temperature, it is the location of the control. The unexamined person is moved by their needs. The examined person moves with them when they choose to, and does not when they do not. Machiavelli's most precise observation on this comes not from the prince, but from his discourses on Livy, the work he considered more important, and that history has largely confirmed as deeper. He observed that the republics and leaders who maintained genuine freedom across time were not those who had the most resources, or the most allies, or the most military strength. They were those who had cultivated what he called virtù, the inner quality that makes external circumstances manageable regardless of what those circumstances are. Virtù is not virtue in the moral sense. It is closer to what we might call psychological sovereignty. The quality of a person whose internal centre holds regardless of what the external world withdraws or threatens to withdraw. You cannot manufacture virtù through tactics. You cannot perform it. You cannot acquire it by reading about it. You develop it by doing exactly what most people spend their lives avoiding. You examine the need. You sit with the discomfort of what you find. You decide consciously which needs you are going to honour and which you are going to release your grip on. And you do this not once, but continuously. Because needs are not static. They shift. New ones form. Old ones you thought you had examined surface again in new forms under new pressure. The person who does this work does not become impossible to control because they have no needs. They become impossible to control because their needs are known to them and unknown to everyone else. And what cannot be seen cannot be grabbed. Machiavelli died in 1527 at 58 years old. He never recovered the position he lost. He never received the recognition he sought from the Medici. He spent the last 15 years of his life on a farm outside Florence, writing books that almost nobody read, and waiting for a relevance that did not fully arrive before he was gone. And in those 15 years, stripped of the career, the income, the political access, the professional identity that had defined him for 14 years, he produced the work that has not been out of print since it was published: The Prince, the Discourses, the Art of War, the Florentine Histories, all of it built after everything that could be taken had been taken, which means the loss revealed something. That the work, the actual work, the observation and the writing and the thinking did not require the position, did not require the recognition, did not require the Medici to hire him or Florence to restore him or history to confirm him in his lifetime. It required only the continued willingness to do it. That is the most Machiavellian thing Machiavelli ever demonstrated. Not in The Prince, in the farm, in the 15 years of writing anyway. He had already lost the thing most people in his position would have needed to keep going, and he kept going. You already know which of your needs are handles, not the ones you would admit to in a conversation, the ones that surfaced during this video in the moments you did not expect them to, the relationship you are staying in past its useful point, the approval you are still waiting for from someone whose opinion you would not consciously claim to need, the outcome you have attached your sense of self to in a way that means its failure would mean more than just the failure of the outcome. Machiavelli is not asking you to stop being human. He is asking you to stop being surprised when the handle gets pulled, because the handle only works while you do not know it is there. Now you know. What you do with that is the only question he ever thought was worth asking. Subscribe. This channel moves slowly and deliberately, but it goes deeper than most are willing to go. Which need is currently being used against you without your permission? Drop it below. Not the safe answer, the real one.